Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
Hi, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
We are excited to connect with you.
Yay!
Because this whole episode is about connecting, but we're going to start with the connections that you have to this podcast, with Alison telling us or shouting out some people who are in our listener stats.
I was not ready for that. This is so new still that I was not ready for that, but thank you for reminding me. Yes, we are shouting out the people in the region of Brittany in France. So hi, everybody. And the people of Springboro, Ohio.
Thank you all for listening and or watching on YouTube. We appreciate you so much. And we hope you spread the word about our podcast. And if you are from those places, like, hey, thanks.
Hi.
As I said, we're here today to talk about connections and a different way to visually help children to understand the connections between the concepts that they may bring up or talk about. I've been reading a lot about something called hexagonal thinking, which is basically taking an idea and connecting the ideas that relate to it visually to it, so that children begin to see these connections. And if we're talking about maybe older children than we sometimes talk about on this podcast, just to give you all an idea of how it would work, let's say you are rhyming words and you are starting with the word mice. You would put the word mice on a piece of paper that's in the shape of a hexagon. And when a child says dice, you would put that word in the middle of another hexagon and connect it to one side of the hexagon. And then another child says twice. Yeah. You put twice in the middle of the hexagon, and now you connect it to those other two, the side, because they all rhyme, right? So it is like a visual way of showing connections. It isn't always as apparent as a rhyme, like I'll give you another example. And again, the paper needs to be cut in the shape of a hexagon, because we all know that every concept has multiple connections, and they can all connect to each other, or they can go out to create new connections. Right. It reminds me almost of like the 6 degrees of separation. I don't know why, but it does. I don't know that there's a connection there.
It reminds me of webbing in a way.
Okay.
Of like, you know how we used to do those little webs where you'd have the topic in the middle, the main topic in the middle, and you would branch out, and then those would get their own circle and they would have branch outs. But I think this hexagonally doing it makes it so that like even the offshoots can connect. Whereas I think in webbing, they do not.
Right. So webbing only connects in one spot.
Yeah.
But if you put things in the middle of hexagons and you figure out, does this connect to this picture or and this like picture? You can put it there.
Yeah.
And here's an example that when Alice and I were discussing this is an example that I came up with. Let's say you're reading the book, A Chair for My Mother, which is about a family that experiences a fire and they lose their favorite chair. So let's say you put a picture of the book in the middle of that piece of paper that's a hexagon. And while you're reading the book, a child says, I have a favorite chair at home. You would take another hexagon and have the child represent their chair. Maybe they draw it, maybe they bring a picture of it, but what's your favorite chair at home? And you would put that in another hexagon and connect it to one side of the Chair with My Mother hexagon. Yeah. And let's say another child says, I sat at the beach. You might get or create a picture of a child sitting at the beach and connect it to a far end of the one with the favorite chair at home, because it's connected to that, but not really the book.
Right.
And let's say a child says, I saw a firefighter the other day. You would take a hexagon piece of paper, put a picture of a fighter, and I would connect that to the book, but not necessarily the other things they're talking about.
Yeah.
So you end up, I think, essentially you end up with a hexagon in the middle, and it can branch out in many directions. It can connect to multiple things.
Yeah. I think it's a very interesting way to track their thinking. And I think it gets maybe them thinking about their own thinking, which I think is smart.
And it shows that, children, all learning is about connection. And what this does is it visually shows them the connections.
Yeah.
We know how much children need visuals to fully understand things. I think seeing these hexagonal, almost like chain links, can help children to revisit ideas, connect new ideas, and really think more deeply about what we're talking to them about. And there are websites, maybe I'll connect one of them to our listener resources so that you can see what we're talking about. There are ones like with rhyming words, but because of the age group, instead of the words, writing the words in the hexagon, you would find pictures of the things that rhyme, for example. There are ones that have to do with just basic concepts and ideas. There are ones that have to do with, it's lots of different topics.
A lot of different topics. It's cool how it could be like that.
And it just keeps branching out. There's no right or wrong answer.
Right.
And the children, I would imagine, as they get older, can begin to take these hexagon pieces of paper and connect them on their own.
I was just thinking that same way, that maybe eventually you give the child the hexagon piece and you say, where do you think this will connect into our existing pipeline or whatever you want to call it, right? And they get to decide where it goes based on what inspired that thought and idea.
Right. So they're deciding, here's what inspired it.
Yeah.
I'm going to connect it here. And then you know what? If they connect it, if they put it on the side of another hexagon, then that gives us the opportunity to have conversations with them about it. We can go over and say, why did you connect it here?
Right.
What? And that's an open-ended, really good open-ended question that makes them think about what they've done.
Right.
I am going to put a link to an article or two on the website. So please go check that at howpreschoolteachersdoit.com if you're having a hard time picturing what we're describing. But again, to sort of picture it, you have pieces of paper that are cut in the shape of a hexagon, which allows children to connect many different ideas to the hexagon, right? Because it has multiple sides that they can connect to. And sometimes an idea has a connection to more than one hexagon, and they should be able to fit into each other because they all have multiple sides. Go to our website, check out the resources, look for the category hexagonal thinking, and we'll put some article citations there. And I want to point out that doing this is not a new idea. People, I think, working with older children have been doing it in relation to literacy, especially for a while. I think perhaps the newer idea is bringing it down to children ages, like maybe 3 to 5, right?
Yeah.
I think 3 to 5 can make sense of this. Imagine even children are having a conversation during large group time. And I think this is such a great use of large group time. And a child starts to talk about something and you realize, wait, multiple ideas connected are coming out of this conversation. I would have these pieces of paper handy and just ask the children, like, I would either take notes on what we're going to find to put on these hexagonal pieces of paper based on the conversation we had, or, if the children are old enough to draw something that actually does look like something, to ask them to draw it. But we want them to go back to these hexagons and be able to recall what they were talking about. So if they're not at a stage of development yet where the drawing is going to look like something to other people, I think what we want to do is stick with pictures that we can find. If you have, I know this is I'm going to say it, it's like an older thing, but they're still out there in the world. If you can find magazines, pictures of commonly discussed things in your classroom, like let's say, the children are always talking about insects, right? So you make sure you have some photos and then think to yourself, what might they connect to it? And have photos available that they can grab and decide, oh, this is something I realized I'm going to put it on a hexagon. When I think about insects, I remember conversations that I had with children, where they would be like, the insects are crawling on the tree, and somebody else would go, my baby sister crawls. That would be be
a good thing.
Right?
Yeah. Because then I think, like using that example of the insects are crawling on the trees, my baby sister crawls. And then somebody else might say birds live in trees, which is two totally separate topics, but still related and inspired by those insects climbing on the tree.
I think we sometimes, now that you say that, I think we sometimes think children's conversations are disconnected, and they're
Yes,
not.
and they're not.
And doing this, having a visual for their conversations can help the adults see the connections. Wouldn't it be kind of cool? Let's say that's an example of a conversation, right?
Yeah.
The ants are crawling on the tree. You have a hexagon with ants crawling on a tree in the middle.
Yeah.
And then someone else says, my baby sister crawls. So you put a picture of a baby.
Right.
Or their actual baby sister on a hexagon and connect it to the one with the ants.
Yeah.
Then what was your third thing?
Birds also live in trees.
Birds live in trees. Goes on an entirely different side of the hexagon that had the ants crawling on the tree.
Yeah.
And then you take a photo of something like that and send it home and say, here's the connections and the conversations your children had today.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Because I think you're right. I think a lot of times the adults think none of their conversations are linked.
They have to be.
And they are. And I think there's a lot of adults who are like, you're getting off topic, but they're really not. They're not. It's a glimpse into what they are thinking and how their thinking is mapped out to link to the original topic.
Yes.
You know,
they are often, I think, making connections that we as adults don't necessarily see.
Right.
But everything that we do is connected to another thing, right? Unless it's totally not. Like if I'm having the conversation about the ants in trees with children, and then another child is like, no, that's still connected. If another child says it's raining outside, well, the tree was outside, so there's a connection there.
It is connected.
So suppose another child says, suppose another child says, I want to play with the trains. Now that's disconnected.
But I think in that point, when the child says, I want to play with the trains, maybe you say, okay, make a hexagon. Where does this hexagon fit into this conversation? And then you can say,
it doesn't.
So that's a different topic that we could start a different hexagon on, maybe, but that might help the children stay more in the realm of the conversation you want to have, or, maybe not, because they're children and they should be able to talk about what they want to talk about. But if you are trying to be, you can always wrap it back around and be like, does that hexagon fit into this map that we already made? And when the answer is no, be like, okay, you need to start a new one over here and talk about that over here. We are talking about this here.
I feel like a frequently asked question could be, does it have to be a hexagon? And I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
A square doesn't have enough sides.
Yeah, but I'm also wondering if a hexagon does.
I think yes, because as we're connecting ideas to the original hexagon and you're adding more hexagons, we're just adding more sides, really. I think yes. I think you'll find that it branches out appropriately, but something like a triangle or a square,
not enough.
They do not have enough sides for where the children will take conversations. And I think that's key to say, it's where the children take things, not us. So we shouldn't prepare ahead of time all these hexagonal connections. It has to come from the children. Even when they're doing something like rhyming, well, I could potentially set up one, but I want the words they came up with, not me.
Right. And I think with that kind of topic of like the rhyming words, it's easy to go back to that topic and be like, oh, remember when we were talking about what rhymes with mice and nice and all that? But when it's these topics that come up out of the blue, like you saw ants on a tree outside, by the time you prep all those hexagons and go back to it, are they going to be even interested in talking about it?
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm picturing so many of these right now, just out of casual conversations with children. A child says, so we go back to the child who says, it's raining outside.
Yeah.
And another child says, I'm going to need my rain boots. So you put the rain on one hexagon, the boots on another, that's related. And another child says, did mommy bring my umbrella? Now the umbrella connects to both the boots
and the rain.
And that's another reason why you need hexagonal shapes, so they can connect to each other. A square can only connect one to every side. A hexagon has multiple side connections.
The one about the umbrella lined up with the rain and the boots. But if you had a square, it would only really be touching one.
Right. We want to touch multiple because the umbrella relates to the boots and the
Yes.
rain.
Yeah. But if it was a different topic and it only related to boots, then you would just connect it to the boots.
Okay, I want everybody to close their eyes and picture a hexagon. I'm thinking we're having some.
It's a great way to teach the shape.
Well, yes.
There you go, but picture a hexagon, because that is like a 6-sided. You can get 6 sides, 6 topics all connecting.
Everybody close your eyes, picture a hexagon. You connect one hexagon to another on one side of that original hexagon.
Mhm.
So now if something else relates, my eyes are closed on YouTube because I'm picturing it with you. Now, if something else relates to both the rain and the boots, it can touch both.
It
both
butts up into
pictures.
the middle there. Yeah.
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 Go to the website.
Yeah. You'll see it on the website.
You'll see examples. But imagine the connections that we can find that children can expand upon. You know, a child says, well, did mommy bring my umbrella? And then another child says, oh, you're going to get all wet. And then you have something that's soaking wet in a hexagon.
Right.
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 And then another child is like, I took a shower, because this is what they do.
That's what
I took a shower, and you could put like a bathroom or a bathtub on a hexagon. Like, again, I think their conversations are connected in ways we're not realizing. And I think that hexagonal images, visuals, hexagonal visuals can show us the children's hexagonal thinking.
Yes.
That's why it's called hexagonal thinking.
Yeah.
I think it's the way children think.
The way they think. I also think if you started really doing these hexagonal visuals, it could be a good planning thing, right? Like you as a teacher now know, like, all right, when we read this book, they didn't really get what I thought they were going to get out of it. They want to do fire prevention instead. And now you know where to bring your next topic to talk about. Be, you know, like that. I think that using it as a planning by what they're thinking about, what they find important, could really be a way to plan what topics to study, what themes to do, what to put in your classroom.
I'll tell you what, I read a lot about this, and I shared with Allison, who read a lot about this. And the more we talk about it, honestly, the more I like it.
I really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it to begin with, or it wouldn't be on an episode.
I liked it to begin with, but I was really like not sure how to get it going, or, you know what I mean? Because to me, I was like, oh, that's a lot of like after the fact planning, right? Because you can't have the hexagons prepped ahead of time because you don't know where the conversation is going to go. And I always thought like, oh, that's not going to work. But now that we're talking, I'm like, yeah, it will work. I think it would actually be a lot of fun.
I'll bet that once you set them up with children 1 year, you're going to reuse them.
Yeah.
I would not get rid of any of those hexagons.
I imagine myself having an entire drawer of hexagons that I'm just going to be like, nope. Oh, here's one.
Yeah. Wait, right. Going into the drawer, like, where are those boots? I know I
have boots somewhere, and just flipping through, and there you go.
I know I had a hexagon with ants on it. Let me find it.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Definitely. I picture myself putting them in alphabetical order in some kind of file folder thing.
Yes.
So yeah, you might even want to prep some, if you know, and you should, what is interesting the children. You might want to prep some so that if the children talk about it, you have them available
right then and there. Yeah.
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 And you're not going to be able to prep all of them ahead of time. And that's okay. Because what you can do is in the morning, get ready by sort of taking notes and noting what the children are talking about. And then you ask if anyone would like to help you put them together during free playtime.
Yeah.
Right. Great literacy activity.
Right.
And then at your end of the day large group meeting, to summarize the day, the way we summarize the day is visit our hexagons.
We're going to visit the hexagons.
We're going to put our hexagons, connect them. We're going to connect them based on what we talked about today.
Help the afternoon meeting, right? Because I think often sometimes when I'm talking in the afternoon, be like, oh, remember what we did kind of thing. Like, let's review what our day was like. Not having a visual makes it difficult, right? So now you have the visual. It's easy for them to see it. It's easy for them to remember it. It's right there.
Again, I'm loving this the more we talk about it. I know.
I like it.
I know. I'm so glad we talked this
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
I don't know if anyone listening is glad, but I'm really glad we
But
talked
we
this
are.
out.
Yeah.
If you're glad we talked this out, you can contact us at our contact page, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. But we're just going to let you go now. Ponder this. Go to our website, which I just said, and you can go to the listener resources, look for the category, hexagonal thinking, pull up, grab links, pull it up, take a look at what we're talking about. And we will catch you next time on the podcast.
Bye, peeps.
Bye, peeps.